Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a centralized platform for athletes and others to network and connect with each other and tap into various resources related to health and finance and business and career services. But this podcast, it's all about the transition out of sport. It's such a major issue today as athletes struggle once they're done with sport, whether it's on the mental health side, the financial literacy side. We're so excited today to have Chad Eichten on. How you doing, Chad?
Yes, Rob, doing very well. Happy Wednesday to you, coming live from sunny Southern California.
Absolutely. I'm here in sunny Florida, so we got both coasts covered in sun. So Chad was a basketball player at Chapman University, and then when he graduated, he became a certified athletic trainer. And getting into the sports world, worked with various teams in professional sports. Ultimately, today he heads up business development for Marsh McClellan agency, which he's going to talk more about. So Chad, I always like to start out, talk about playing sports growing up and how that shaped you leading up into college.
Yeah, it's always a great question and gets you go back to your glory days of growing up. And I'm sure many of us wish we could go right back to them. But I think initially sport, I was attracted to at a very young age, probably close to 5 as I can remember, and watching what were essentially my idols of Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Jerry Rice. And quite frankly, wanted to be the best, just like they were. And naturally, I think like many kids, you start with t-ball and you start with soccer. And I think the first part of sport that I really enjoyed was playing soccer, and was at forward, and started putting goals in the back of the net. And I think that feeling of scoring and celebrating and, of course, winning, that becomes addicting. And I think that was my initial memory. And then how that shaped, it just became addicting. And winning was something that I really gravitated towards. And working as a team, being a team player, and knowing that those things. And now, of course, later on in life, you realize, maybe not in the moment, how important those intangibles were. But I would say, the taste of winning was something that sport helped to shape me into life during and after sport.
Yeah, no, I mean it's such a I talk about it in each podcast, that athlete skill set. I mean, so many of those things that you learn and are ingrained, and you definitely help in those next levels. And did you dream about being a professional athlete, and if so, what sport?
Yeah, another good question. Yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan, I mean, even to this day, if you were to ask, hey, who's one person you would want to meet or have a meal with, I would like to ask that question. I mean, hands down would be Michael Jordan. I think as a competitor, not only on his sport, but out of his sport. I mean, we hear his stories about golf course. We hear about his stories about playing cards and how he wouldn't let people go to sleep until he had the upper hand. In addition to how he conducted himself off the court. I think Kobe helped bring that to light, where Kobe, I think one of the greatest lines he ever said, there would be no Kobe Bryant if there wasn't Michael Jordan. And how you go back to interviews, and we're talking in the 80s when media and all that wasn't really nearly what it is today. And his demeanor, his calmness, how he would take time to think about a question. And even, they're talking right now, this whole conversation about LeBron and who's the GOAT, and, LeBron carousel of coaches and how he says this and claims this. And you're like, Michael Jordan didn't ever claim that he was the GOAT. He just went about his business, did what he did. That was who I wanted to be. And, I think time, I always will look back, and ended up choosing basketball as my primary sport into college. But I do look back and think, like, maybe if I would have stuck with soccer or stuck with baseball for a 6-foot individual, would life be a little bit different?
Yeah, I always say it's true. I joke around, but I say I want to be a Major League Baseball player. Unfortunately, the talent wasn't there, so I do podcasts. So
I don't know, Rob. There's no slough. I listened to your 100 podcasts, and running a 440 mile is a feat that probably less than 5% of people say they can do.
Yeah, it's that's my one claim. I was pretty decent at running. Now I'm still running, not necessarily competitively, but I challenge myself each run. I'm like during the week of can I run in the 8-minute miles, which at my age it's not bad. So let's talk about athletes in transitioning out of sports. So When you were in school, and it might be different now, like I know it's the same thing with me, but was there education of, towards the athletes, not just a 1 day workshop, but to help them, picture their future?
See, I think for myself, it might have been a little bit different because I was in a unique situation where not only was I an athlete, I selected a major, a focus of study that was sport as well. So athletic training. And so as you grow in your athletic training career, you have clinical rotations each semester, whether it's a lower extremity dominant sport, an upper, a high impact, a clinic. And so I want to say that going and doing those things was helping you prepare for at least your next venture, whether
Right.
that was grad school, which I ended up going to grad school. 80% of certified athletic trainers have their master's degree, so wanted to be the 80%, not the 20. In addition to um, having that mindset of like, hey, you're gonna have to put in extra time. It's not just go to class, do your studies, play your sport, and then what? Go into business school. I was fortunate to be in and around athletes for quite some time, so I think that helped ease the mind of that transitional period.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to one guy, former college football player, and his thing was he just, in retrospect, he just wishes there was a 4 week workshop or a mandatory class that each athlete had to take, to position themselves again, like, hey, there's going to be a future where sport's not part of it, and these are the things you need to do, and I think it's important that education, and some of the things we've talked about doing, probably talked about you offline too, is just potentially getting into athletic departments with kind of a team approach of people that are in mental health and financial and career and marketing, sales, but to work with not only the current athletes but the alumni athletes as well.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and I think it's listening to your podcast, a few folks that went to Division I schools, where Chapman's in a Division III school, and so it's really driven around academic. Athletics is a nice to have, but it's not necessarily a end all be all. Where D1 is a lot of programs are driven by their athletics, and so resources around helping athletes weren't maybe as readily available as Division I programs. But then listening to my friend Jason Price, who went to USC, I heard him mention that they didn't really have as many of those resources as well. So I think it is interesting. Now, mind you, heck, I graduated 20 almost 18 years ago. So times have changed. So I would imagine today's day and age that they do have these resources. And if they don't, how do we help plug in an Alumni Direct to get them to build that bridge?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a need for it. I mean, it's a shame to see a lot of these athletes that are struggling. It's something that's become not only my passion, but passion of Alumni Direct and podcast and all this. We just really wanted to help make an impact and on helping fellow athletes. So let's talk about networking, connecting. So important, and I know that's how we met. So talk a little bit about that and the importance of it, as well as the importance while you're still playing.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like if you were to go back, what would you do differently? Is always my thinking on how do I learn from that, and how do you potentially share that with others in that position to help coach them up. But you mentioned one word that sticks out, or actually both words. I think one word sticks out more than the other. So you look at networking, you look at connecting, right? So many of us in our various capacities of day to day, we are encouraged to go out and meet people and look to develop and grow relationships. I think we can all agree relationships is a strong form of currency. So yeah, networking, right? So then it's like, okay, what do I do? What's my follow up from that networking event or that networking situation? And then I think that leads to connecting. So how are you maybe taking it an extra step to actually connect? And like you mentioned, how we met is through a gentleman by the name of Kent Seaton, the co-founder of Athletes Touch, which is one of the communities that I'm very involved in and passionate about. Because really, what that community is built around is relationship, but also connecting individuals, really what we call the art of the introduction. So interestingly enough, this morning woke up and I had 2 introductions from a couple of my colleagues and friends from Athletes Touch introducing me to a couple other people. So I think it's one thing to connect and like, okay, hey, how can I generate business opportunity? Yeah, that's always great and I get it. But hey, how do we connect? Where's there a commonality? Did we go to an alumni? Do we share a similar interest? Do we play a similar sport? Where's their alignment, right? How do you identify someone or something in common or something that you may respect about them or their industry that they're actually in?
Yeah, no, and I think another key word you just brought up was relationship, because I think it's people need to realize it's you want to build that relationship. You never know. I always say you meet somebody, first of all, they might not necessarily be the one that's to help you. It might be somebody that they know, and so but I think you have to go in with the mentality of almost a servant mentality of what can I do to help. So how can I help Chad, not how can Chad help Rob. And it just having that mentality. But I think you're right. Connecting is the key to that, and then building that relationship. And it could be something that might happen today. It could be something that happens 5 years from now. But I think it's I know through my career in sales, I always developed great relationships with my customers and knowing their family and stuff like that. And just you never know. So those were definitely great points you brought up there.
Yeah, and one other thought is, it's a really, really cool community, and it really stems from another organization that's more business driven. It's called Provisors. And so the gentleman who started Provisors, his son, Justin Blaine, who's the co-founder with Kent, they were both part of Provisors, and it wasn't necessarily as much of a fit for them in the time. This all came about 2010, I want to say, in that ballpark. And so they're like, hey, why don't we take this concept, this model, and shape it for former athletes that we all are very similar in what we went through in our day to day. And now we're all focused on this whole transition in the business world and how do we help each other, win in business. And so I think it's just a little bit more of an authentic approach than someone like you just said, right? Showing up, hey, what can I get out of this? Who can I try to generate business from versus, hey, I'm curious, I want to listen. Who can I potentially help? And how does that over time come back in spades so that we can all, win?
Yeah, and I always encourage too when I talk about network is it's never too early to start. And it was interesting. I was talking to a couple college students, freshmen and sophomore athletes, and we were talking about networking, connecting, and they said they'd never learned it, and something that would have been really. I mean, they're still young, obviously, but something that would have been valuable. I mean, if you think back even in high school, I mean, you've got your friends, and you never know what their parents are doing. Your coaches, I mean, coaches are very instrumental, or could be instrumental in people's lives. So, we just encourage athletes to go out and do it. And even, I guess the other thing that came up is doing it while you're still playing and relevant. Because I know I talked to one agent, and I bring this up a lot, but the agent has said that a lot of times the athlete is so focused on the sport, which is understandable. But then when they're done, they're like, okay, well, where's my $100,000 sales job or whatever? And it might not fit into that because they just haven't built that network or the relationships with people.
Absolutely. And I picked up in another episode I was listening to, and the importance of storytelling. I think we find that folks may not understand or have the best structure in telling their story to a specific audience, and what quite frankly is a differentiator or uniqueness about your situation that you can lean on and really come with a personal approach versus just saying someone, oh, this is my job title, this is the company I work for, and it may not resonate as much. Where if I lead with, hey, I'm part of a community of business leaders that many of us are former athletes, which happened last night at an event I was at. And this guy's like, no way, man, I played football at Princeton. And all of a sudden we were able to go in I think a different rabbit hole than if I was to tell him what my corporate responsibility is. And it just opened up a broader conversation. And now we're actually going to be talking more business opportunities because I think I led with that story that it resonated to him a little bit more.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to that. And I was telling you a little bit offline, like we do a monthly networking event with our podcast guests, and it's just kind of cool to see, sharing the different sports, whether they were a wrestler, or swimmer, baseball player, football, basketball, whatever it might be, but just again that commonality that they have to talk, like you just brought up. So let's talk about alumni engagement. And this is something obviously Alumni Direct is important to us. So going back to when you were at Chapman, um, was there a move then to bring alumni athletes back to work with the current athletes, and not just like for them coming back for homecoming or thing like, but like act or golf tournament, but like something actually working together?
I can speak specifically to basketball. I think it's really cool that my head coach then is still the head coach today. He would have guys come back a little bit more geared around, hey, like let's do a homecoming type of situation, or come watch a game, or hey, someone would come in and share a little bit of their story of their time and their challenges, trials, and tribulations, and how they overcame them. Maybe before a game, a little bit of a pep talk. But I think to your point is something that was a little bit more broader, or structured, or expanded, or expansive. Not as much, and I believe there's a significant area of opportunity in Chapman specifically. I'm part of helping. We got a couple of programs I'm a mentor with a couple students that aren't involved in athletics, but then there's called Playbook for Life, where we're looking to help student athletes specifically in this transition. And so, yeah, it's something I'm now passionate about and really trying to help with that conversation for sure.
Yeah, that's great, and I'm sure it helps having having the same coach too, because I know that's a lot of times when you look at alumni coming back. I mean, it's got to be a two-way street. Obviously, the athlete needs to want to come back too, but I think what happens is whether there's a change in the athletic director or the coaching, and they're kind of, not that they don't care about the alumni, but they're more focused on what they have in front of them. And even if it is alumni, it's more like that fell into their class. And I think that probably does play into it. So it'd be nice to see more of a general thing with schools to try to bring these athletes back. I know, like I was on a call with my school and Delaware, and I had one of the former athletes on, and he played Hall of Fame football player for Delaware. Shout out to Ivory Sully, and played for the Rams, played in the NFL for about 10 years. But just talking about coming back to mentor, and just like, hey, tap in, we're here for you. And sometimes whether the school wants to do it or not, I don't know. Maybe it's just a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, and one quick thing I'll share. I just got an email from a good buddy of mine. The head athletic trainer is still there today as well, and they're looking to revamp and improve some of the facilities within the athletic training department. So a good buddy of mine who was heavily involved with the school as well sent out an email to 10, 12 of us that were looking to disperse that to other alumni folks to see how can we potentially band together and help out. So I think the alumni conversation is strong and is often overlooked. I mean, I get an alumni newsletter every month, and I'm impressed and amazed of like, oh my gosh, wow, that person is doing this. And it's good to know, but I'm
Right.
like, man, I think it would be really nice to have a little bit more centralized community that we're able to collaborate a little bit more than maybe we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, since you did watch some of the other episodes, you probably had a little chance to prepare. But my fun questions that I like to ask is number one, what advice would you give to freshman Chad?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And yes, you did. I did have a little chance to prepare. And I think that's a big thing too, is doing your homework. And if you're going to be on a podcast, if you're going to jump into a meeting or have a meeting, see what information is out there that might give you a little bit of an edge. But with answering your question, I think be more involved. I think coming into school, you have this certain persona. Not that I was necessarily overly confident, but I would say, yeah, we were a confident individual, had success at the high school level, coming into college, new experience, but it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to compete and I want to play. and it was humbling. I was the fourth out of fifth point guards. We had 5 freshman point guards, so I was the fourth one. And so the natural reaction, or at least the road I took, was to like, oh, this is the coach's fault. And I would have told myself, spend more time, get to understand, hey, coach, what can I do? What can I work on? Like, how can I better position myself, and not necessarily take the approach of like, oh, it's their fault, not mine. So I would have said, get more involved and put in the extra time to be better in that, more in the sport conversation. And I would say scholastically is similar conversation, is get to know your professors. I mean, some of these professors have been around for quite some time. They might know some people that could help you in the next trajectory of where you're trying to go. They have office hours for a reason. Don't think you're too cool for school to not go and get to know these folks. I look back and some of the professors, I'm like, why didn't I go spend more time with them? And the last thing I would share is get more involved. I was like, okay, I'm too busy, or, I'm going to go have fun with my friends. And I didn't join a fraternity. I look back and said, maybe I should have, not understanding the impact of the alumni of other fraternity individuals that could have, again, helped you have gotten to where you're trying to go. So I think that's freshman Chad, is just be more involved and take maybe the blinders off of you're nobody, right? Get to know other people and how that can help grow your trajectory of your career.
And how about senior Chad?
Senior Chad? Yeah, senior Chad. I mean, I started to get more involved. I think at that point was understanding, okay, here's the career you're quote unquote selecting. What does that look like 5-10 years from now? How can you position yourself so that you can succeed and get to what your ultimate goal was, which was working in the NBA as a certified athletic trainer, which we accomplished. But I think, how could we have positioned ourselves to sustain that goal? And that goes back to freshman Chad, is, hey, how do you get more involved, right? Okay, I knew the program director, I was very fortunate of our program, Dr. Kai Kugler. He helped connect me to Jason Powell, my first mentor, who's today the director of performance for the Clippers. And understanding, hey, what does that look like? How can I prepare today that's going to position me to create a longer standing career in the NBA?
Yeah, no, it's funny when I ask that question too, because sometimes so which way do I go in this? So let's talk quickly, because I always like to bring it up. Just give me some quick thoughts on NIL, name, image, likeness. Actually, I do another podcast called NIL for You, and we talk about a lot of the topics, but give me some quick positives and negatives.
Yeah, another interesting conversation I was having with a gentleman yesterday who has experience with USC, got some friends, of course, that went to USC. I actually do a little bit of performance coaching with some basketball players. One's a freshman to be a sophomore in college, and the other's a sophomore to be a junior in high school. And so I've been in and around this conversation around NIL. I think positively, I think it's great for these players to get paid for these organizations or institutions that make a lot of money on their athletic programs. I think the downside is, how do you regulate this so this creates some level of an even playing field? I don't know enough. I haven't read enough, but it just seems as if, okay, we got this individual, our quote unquote stars on the team, making $1 million plus. And then we got other folks that are making maybe 6 figures or whatever that number looks like. And how do you continue to maintain that continuity so that its money isn't overtaking what that goal is of your team of winning a championship? The transfer portal, last thing I'll share, I like the transfer portal, and I like for these athletes the ability to navigate to make more money. But I also look at the downside of, what is this teaching our student athletes of the old school mentality of, hey, you go, you show up, and you work for it, right? If you want to play, you got to earn it. Now he's going, I'm not playing. I'm not getting the minutes I think I deserve. Well, I'm just going to go somewhere else. And
Right.
so how is that shaping the mindset for their career? So that they're going to be at a job and they're not liking their situation. So I'm just going to go leave my job and go to a new job. I get it. We're not in the day of age of individuals staying with companies for 10, 15, 20 plus years, like maybe our parents did in the baby boomer age. But then it's like, is it more about the situation or is it more about the mindset? So it's really interesting how this shapes student athletes mentally over time.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I always say too, like one of the biggest things is kind of getting to the education side of it, is knowing that hey, you're gonna have to pay taxes, set up an LLC, like all the things that people might not necessarily think about, whether the athlete, which they would know maybe at a young age, or the parents, and just I think that's important as well. So let's talk about your transition out of sports, so to speak. Not, I mean, technically out of playing, I should say. So you grew up, you played all the sports, loved it and all that. Now all of a sudden, your college career is coming to an end. Talk about what that transition was like for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, the transition was essentially to get into the NBA. I wasn't going to be able to play in the NBA, but to work in the NBA was something that was always a dream of mine. And so going into grad school, going from a D3 level to a D1 level at Utah State was great experience. Getting out of Southern California, spending some time in Utah, and then I think transitioning from Utah State to the Clippers was another eye opening experience, and being able to fold up towels and sit on the hardwood floor. And I was the individual who overlooked the visiting team during home games, and being around all these NBA players that you grew up watching, and being able to learn how to conduct yourself in that type of environment, to go from like a fan to an actual professional. So I want to say, that transition of like growing up fast and knowing how to handle yourself, not only around high level individuals, but pressured situations, and knowing like, wow, we got these athletes that are $1 million players, and we're in control of how we help take care of their health, whether it's prehabilitation, mitigating risk of injury. Wow, okay, so now we have an injury. How do we help handle that? So I think that was just a unique transition, to go from athlete myself to then education, and then furthering that to like, okay, wow, it's showtime, it's game time, and now actually working and dealing with athletes at a very high level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I guess some quick words of advice to other athletes that might be struggling now with getting out of sports. Any advice on their transition?
Yeah, I think this, lean on the people that are in your corner. I mean, it's okay. I mean, your parents, your any of your extended family, teammates. I mean, I think a lot of times you get done with school and it's like, all right, we all go our separate ways. Well, hey, in this technological age, we're a phone call away. I mean, I'm just curious. How did you, and be curious, ask questions. How did you handle this situation? I got this coming up. How would you approach it? I think the hard part is a lot of times people don't want to ask for help. And I learned that early, is be okay, be comfortable being uncomfortable, be okay asking that hard question. So I got a nucleus of friends that I'll hit up, and I'm like, and there's no judgment zone, and shoot each other straight. And I think that's the biggest thing, is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, that's key. And I think I love that you brought that up, because I think that there's a lot of people out there that want to help, and whether it's people in your corner or even other people that just want to be a part of this. So yeah, it's one of the things that every episode, when I listen back, just the advice and just hearing the different stories of these athletes and where they are today. Hopefully, I always say make an impact on at least one, but hopefully many athletes, when people are watching and listening. So let's fast forward to today. So you head up business development. Talk about what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I essentially, I mean, we can fast forward 8 years ago. I made a transition out of the quote unquote performance world into the consulting world in a couple different capacities. and which has led me to today with an organization. We're a global consulting firm. My primary area of focus today is helping lead an expansion of our life science practice that we have within our organization that was built predominantly out of San Diego to lead expansion into Orange County in LA, where I reside today. And not to get too into the weeds, but essentially what we do in helping life science and really organizations across all industries, this is my area of focus, as we look to partner with CFOs and HR leaders of companies to where we help them strengthen, expand their risk management and their talent strategies, meaning each organization has a variety of insurance policies to help protect their business, in addition to their employee benefits programs, their health care, and everything that comes in to be able to provide and offer to their employees as a attraction and retention tool for top talent. So we go in there, we get under the hood, we have a process where we do an evaluation and see how we can maybe help to achieve goals that they may have or are aspiring to have, or solve problems that they may be having today.
Okay. And then how would maybe kind of wrapping up, we talk about the athlete skill set, the DNA. Talk a little bit about how you feel that kind of translates into your world now. I mean, just seeing you being an athlete yourself, but companies looking to hire athletes. Talk a little more about that.
Yeah, no, I think the skill set, and everyone's different. I mean, I think whether it's an individual sport where you don't necessarily may have to lean on a team, or whether it's a team sport where you got to lean on other folks around you, and how do you identify what that individual skill set is so that you can maximize their output. I know there's a variety of personality tests and such, I think, to help companies identify. But I think at the end of the day, and you'll hear a lot of organizational leaders say that athletes a lot of times have failed. And so it's like the whole Dwayne Wade concept of fall down 7, get up 8. Right. So how do you respond? I think things happen, hopefully more good than bad. But when it is good, okay, how do we continue to learn and replicate that? And if it's bad, what happened and how do we talk through and how do we learn from it so that hopefully we mitigate that from happening again? So I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of that individual and how do we best position them so that we can maximize what their skill set is.
Okay, great. And so how can people find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I mean, I don't have a website as of now. But yeah, LinkedIn is the easiest way.
Okay, great. And it's you can, it's Chad Eichten, and you can look up, and then, definitely great conversation. I mean, I always, like I said, I always enjoy picking up different things from all the athletes. And you can find us at alumnidirect.com. If you go to our YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe and follow the show, but that's where you can find the video version of Athletes and Entrepreneurs Alumni Journey. We're also across all the podcast networks, and we're on sportsepreneur.com. Our friends over there who have multiple different types of podcasts, I definitely encourage you to go out to their site and check out some of these other podcasts. But and then TikTok, Instagram, all that. But again, thank you so much, Chad. And I really, like I said, we want to encourage people to listen. I mean, the great advice that you gave today and these other athletes, I think it's so important.
Yeah, no, Rob, this is great. Really appreciate your time and giving me the platform to share a little bit of our story and our journey. And yeah, just very excited to continue to build community in these different capacities that we're involved in. And I'm excited to see what we can do to help even expand Alumni Direct in various capacities.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I hope everyone has a great day.